given your mandatory status, there'll be a lot of people watching, Charlo, Castano, plenty of others. What sort of a message do you want to send to them in this fight?
Look, I think this Inoue is similar type of style as Castano, wild and rugged, and comes forward. Will be a good preparation before a fight for either Castano or Charlo. So again, I'm here to send out a message to all those Americans, PBC fighters, that I'm coming for each and every one of them.
And how are you going to send that message, Tim? How do you expect this fight goes down on November 17?
Easy. The fight doesn't go to distance. I've predicted that in every fight since the Jeff Horn. I've said that the 12th round to the 12th round, the bell's not going to go. That's what I plan on doing. This guy hasn't been stopped. I'm taking Mungua's leftovers. He was a world champion. He was fighting for the belts, and every one of his opponents are again Hogan and then now the Jap guy. These are the guys I'm beating for no title, for nothing, just for again legacy, I guess.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Tim Tszyu. Enjoy the rest of your preparation, and we'll talk to you soon.
On November the 17th of 2021, of course. Big J, do you know where this fight is taking place at? Has it been announced yet?
No, mate, the venue has not been announced, but it'll be somewhere in Queensland, I dare say. I've heard stories that they're aiming for a venue on the Gold Coast, but that's all I know. But venue will probably be announced very, very shortly.
Okay, so as it stands right now, there's no venue, but Tim Tszyu, who is now 19-0 with 15 KOs, is going to be taking on a Takashi Inoue. No relations to Naoya Inoue, 118-pound bantamweight champion. He is 17-1-1 with 10 KOs. I've watched him fight in full once when he fought Jaime Munguia. That was back in January of 2019. We're approaching 3 years since he had that fight. He is ranked number 7 by the WBO. And right now, the issue I have is we're going to jump right into it. So as you can see, first, let me just stop and say this is TstreeT Controversy and Big J with FightView360.com. WBC champion Jermell Charlo, we don't know what he's going to be doing yet. He has to fight Bakhram Murtazaliev, the IBF mandatory, or Brian Castano. But we don't know if Murtazaliev is going to fight him or is going to allow Jermell Charlo to fight Brian Castano again. He's been waiting for his IBF shot for God knows how long. Well, anyway, Jermell Charlo has 3 belts: WBC, WBA Super, IBF, and then you have Castano with the WBO. Tim Tszyu, just a little less than a month ago, was named mandatory contender for WBO champion Brian Castano. And Magomed Kurbanov, who's going to be taking on Patrick Teixeira. By the way, we have this article here pulled up from Boxing Scene, former WBO champion, taking on who should be the WBO mandatory contender, in my opinion, Kurbanov. That's going to be December the 11th. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say right now that it doesn't sit right with me that Kurbanov, who arguably has the better resume, even though people feel that he may have, got a bad decision against Liam Smith, arguably, it looks like to me that the WBO are only giving Tim Tszyu, front of the line because his name is, Tszyu. So I'm going to bring you in, Big J. Also, let me go ahead and say right now that quote right there from Tim Tszyu doesn't sit well with me either, pretty much saying that he's on the record fighting Jaime Munguia leftovers. How did you feel about that?
Well, mate, you know how I've been going on about this vulture mentality that, Tim Tszyu's just picking, the leftovers of, other people's work. Like Jeff Horn was Mick Zarafa's leftovers. Dennis Hogan was Jamal Charlo, Jaime Munguia's leftovers, and now he's blatantly openly said it. He's fighting Munguia's leftovers. Why would you say such a statement that would shoot you in the foot? Like, it takes away credibility. is like my initial reaction to this fight was, oh, okay, yep, he's fighting a bloke, yep, Inoue, yeah, his name was mentioned, ranked number 7 in the WBO. The only blokes ranked above him are all former world champions and Kurbanov. Personally, I still think he should be fighting Kurbanov. The WBO should have ordered that fight, and that's on the WBO. You can't blame Tim for that or his team, but you know, I'm thinking, why would you sort of bury yourself saying that? I thought the fight was going to be a good test. You know, it still is. But when I found out about Kurbanov versus Teixeira, I'm like, oh, okay, he's not, you know, he's not trying to fight the best. He's just trying to, you know, have a easy build-up fight to his title shot, which is tactically a very smart move. You know, you're not going to go in there against someone who's possibly going to beat you when you're a mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems that he's taking yet another easier route to a title shot. Because if you look at his resume, he's got 2 established 154s on his record, world ranked, and everyone else is either a blown up welterweight. Mm-hmm. So it's not doing his credibility. It's not doing his credibility any favors, or very few favors. So I'm like, why would you openly admit that you're just eating off other people's plates?
It's just it's to me. I'm really upset with the WBO because why didn't they just order Tszyu versus Kurbanov? And now you have Kurbanov. You have Kurbanov fighting the former WBO champion in Teixeira. Not only that, but Teixeira on December the 11th, by the way, is going over to Russia. So what does that mean? That both of these fighters were available to travel. So say for example, just like Big J said, if Kurbanov versus Teixeira wasn't announced, I would have been like, okay, all right, this is a really, really good fight for Tszyu. But now that I know that better competition, higher ranked competition was available, and not only this, I mean, it's not, it's not Tszyu's fault that the WBO didn't order him to fight Kurbanov. The team, they want to get a credible name on their resume. He fought a former world champion. He fought Jaime Munguia at 154. He is ranked, meaning Inoue, number 7 by the WBO. But now it kind of taints the fight for me because you have Kurbanov arguably in a tougher fight, and he's not the guy getting the title shot next.
Exactly. I mean, even though you got to look past the fact that Teixeira was a paper champion that lost his first defense, that's really irrelevant. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, yeah, Tszyu's finally got a good fight. This is going to be good. He's going to prove himself. Oh, the other bloke's fighting the ex-champ.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't look very good. It's like, yeah, but there's nothing you can do about it. But going back to Inoue, this bloke is 17-1-1. I looked at his record. Now, 13 of the blokes that this fella's fought are either novices, meaning they've had 10 fights or less, or they've got more losses than wins on their record. Yeah. So I've really studied his record. I'm like, well, the blokes he's fighting really aren't that. Obviously, his highest profile is the Jaime Munguia fight, and after he lost that, he's only fought twice. He fought one bloke with a record of 14-2, and then some novice with a record of 6-1.
Yeah,
is that correct?
After Munguia, he fought a guy that was 38-10-1, another guy that was 3-4-1, a guy that was this was 2 fights in 2020, by the way, during the pandemic. Well, before the pandemic, in January of 2020, he fought a guy who was 14-2-1. And then in November of 2020, he fought a guy who is 6-0-2, and now he's fighting Tszyu. And if he wins, he'll be the mandatory. Like, none of this, the WBO really, really, really stunk this up right here, with this Kurbanov versus Teixeira, because, now, I mean, don't get me wrong, to give my prediction on the fight, my preview, I think it's going to be a really good fight. I do feel it's going to go the distance. I did cover Munguia versus Inoue, And what I saw is just like many Japanese fighters, they really come to fight. Think about a guy most recently, years ago, not even that long ago, less than 5 or so years ago, Yoshihiro Kamagai in 147, 154-pound divisions. Inoue, believe it or not, I'm going to say he fights just like him. He's going to be there. He's never been stopped. It's going to be interesting to see Tszyu go the distance with a guy like Inoue, because if Tszyu were to stop him, I am going to give Tszyu credit for that. And I think this is going to be a good test for Tszyu. Tszyu even said during that interview with Ben Damon that it is going to be the hardest fight of his career. But when you look at the fact that he's a mandatory for a championship, and then he has a chance, we have to factor this in, because if Charlo versus Castano happens, right, too, the winner, if it, God forbid, it ends in a draw again, the winner will have all the belts of all they on top of the world. The first ever 4-belt champion, undisputed champion of the 4-belt era. So Tszyu and his team, they know this, obviously, and they're trying to buy their time to be able to go for all the marbles. So by the way, the IBF comes first. So let's say in a perfect world, Charlo versus Castano 2 happens. What are you going to get? You're going to get the winner of that versus Bakram Murtazaliev. That has to happen, I'm going to say, sometime before July of next year. Then that's when Tszyu will be able to get his shot. Sometime by the end, maybe this time next year, is when he'll actually be getting his title shot. So until then, is he going to just sit on his mandatory? Let's say, for example, if he, in my opinion, I'm going to let you take over after this, Big J. In my opinion, I think that the winner of this should fight the winner of Kurbanov Teixeira. That makes perfect sense. A little mini tournament. Because you're not getting the title shot right away.
Oh, here's another fact that you've forgotten. Erickson Lubin's WBC mandatory. And
yes,
I
forgot all about that.
Yep, see? That's what you got me for.
So therefore, he's not going to be... So from my understanding, now...
It's IBF, WBC,
then WBO. Oh, yeah. Well, then look. So he may not be looking at a title shot. I'm talking about to be mandated until like the end of next year or so. And you got to think, the sanctioning bodies know this. The WBO knows this already. So what is Tszyu going to do? I'm guessing, I can't wait to see what they're going to do within like the next year, because now all their fights, it can't be bullshit fights. Kind of like the Dylan White situation, how long he's going to be waiting to get his title shot because the belts are always tied up.
Yeah, and also, Castano's going to have another fight before the end of the year.
He does.
And if he doesn't fight Charlo, who's he going to fight?
Well, if he doesn't fight Charlo, then I'm guessing that that's the only way Tszyu can probably get in there.
Because let's look at this, right? All the top tier guys are tied up.
Mm-hmm.
Kurbanov and Teixeira are fighting each other. Tszyu and Inoue are fighting each other. Liam Smith is fighting Anthony Fowler.
October the 9th.
October 9th. Is that right? October 9th?
Yep.
Over in the UK. So that just leaves Jared Swift-Hurd, who lost his last fight. And who else is there?
Well, they've been talking to Tony Harrison. I never believed that was going to happen.
Well, no, Tony Harrison was supposed to fight, and I don't know if you saw it on Twitter or not, but basically Team Zoo gave Tony Harrison a time limit to sign the contract, and he went back, piss off, I'll sign it when I feel like it. So, and fancy telling Tony Harrison that you've got a deadline. Seriously, guys? Anyway, but that Tony Harrison fight was, by my sources, was supposed to happen, and there was a low ball offer. He just turned around and said, not coming out, bugger you. He was actually supposed. That was very, very close to being done. Very, very close.
Well, maybe they can still, revisit it, because we won't really.
Well, here's another. Yeah, besides Harrison's a hypothetical. Don't worry about it. Here's something I want to bring up that I've noticed a bit. Is it possible Tszyu might get burnt out because he's had a lot of fights? He hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
Because you notice, Liam Wilson had a burnout and the Filipino bloke knocked him out. Ebony Bridges didn't look so flash her last fight because she's been non-stop fighting. Tim's the most active fighter in the world at that level. I mean, even though he's only 26 or 27
this is his third fight.
this year.
Yeah, this year.
And fifth in the last, what?
14. It'll be 5 and 14 months.
Yeah, 5 and 14 months.
50, yeah, just about 15 months. Yeah, 5 and 15 months. Crazy.
I mean, sooner or later, you got to burn yourself out. So that's something I was thinking about the other day. I'm thinking, is he just, being? I'm glad he didn't. It would have been interesting to see him because initially he was supposed to fight September 8th. That was never going to happen. But maybe he's being a little bit too active. So that's just something I was thinking in the back of my head. Going, is it because Inoue hasn't fought for a year? So is it obviously he's going to have some ring rust, and he's 31, so he's starting to edge past his prime. I mean, you've seen this bloke fight, so you think it's going to be easy walkover, or it's going to go to distance?
I think it's I think it will go to distance, and I think because we're going to see a relentless pressure fighter, somebody we never seen Tszyu against. He's a straight come forward fighter. But he's going to come out there to try to do some damage, and Tszyu is likely going to get cracked at least once. The problem, if I was to rate it from a 1 to 10, as I was talking to Big J earlier about, if I was to rate Inouye's defense, hands down, I'm going to be 4 of 10, 5 of 10. It's that low. He's going to be easy to hit. So, for Tszyu, either we're going to see him have to dig, if we're going to see him dig deep and fight in the pocket, or, he has the ability, the chance of this fight to show how great of a boxer or good of a boxer technician he can be, because he should be able to light Inoue up. But I think that the Japanese guy is going to be there all night.
Yeah, well, remember that Tszyu likes to fight at range, and he loves those long-range body shots. So the thing is with Tszyu, if you want to beat him, you've got to get him within the first 2 rounds, because for some reason, the first 2 rounds, he doesn't seem to do much.
Inouye's going to be hell early from the very beginning.
Well, that's how you beat Tszyu, because once 3 or 4 rounds pass and he gets his eye in, it's pretty much, he's pretty hard to beat. But then again, you can't compare he's been fighting to who he's about to fight.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love the fight. It's just that now it's overshadowed by Kurbanov versus Teixeira.
Yeah, that is very disappointing, because the fight is fantastic. It's like, thank God he's actually fighting someone ranked in the top 10 with WBO and an established 154, and not some blown up welterweight. Yeah. So that's going to be fantastic. But I mean, technically speaking, finding, let's say, lack of a better term, the weakest, and that's no disrespect, but probably the easiest opponent he can find before he fights for the title. That's smart. Why would you go and risk it all fighting the top dog? If you lose, you're gone. So technically speaking, it's a very smart move.
Especially having to find someone that would come over to Australia, and do the quarantine and deal with everything that's going on over there. So, props to him for being able to get a top 10 opponent. But let me just rattle off these names in the top 10 real quick. Of course, Tszyu, number 1, Kurbanov, number 2, Murtazaliev, number 3, Teixeira, number 4, Liam Smith, 5, Jack Kuke, number 6, Inoue, number 7, Sergio Garcia, number 8, Brandon Adams, number 9, and Ant Fowler, number 10. Brandon Adams has been on a very long layoff. You may remember him from fighting Charlo about a year and a half ago. Sergio Garcia may be moving up to 160 pounds. I've covered his last 2 fights fighting on Sergio Martinez cards. And the only name that I really thought could possibly be available, I didn't even think about Inoue, was a possible Jack Kuke fight. But,
we've been talking about him for a while now. We've been talking about him for a while. Because he hasn't fought in a long time. He's been sitting in Germany doing not much.
Yeah, so, he's not fighting anybody, nothing coming up. But to be honest, from an excitement standpoint, the Inoue fight is a better fight.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. Top 10 opponent, Japanese fighter, they're tough hard buggers. So, he's coming over here. I hope that he gets in the country pretty much now, because, that 2-week quarantine, I mean, that fight's, 2 months away? Yeah. What's today's date? 20th of September? Yeah, that's what's September here in Australia. So, he needs to get himself over to Australia like now because he'll have to do a 2-week quarantine regardless of what state he goes to. Actually, maybe no, he probably have to do 2-week quarantine regardless. I don't know what Japan's COVID cases are. I don't want to get into that. Yeah, so he'd have to come in here, do a 2-week quarantine, then do his camp. So he needs to be here within the next week to get a half decent training camp in. So,
All right. Closing.
I think let's go for the prediction. I'm going 50-50. I don't know which way to go.
I'm going.
Tim's got no real record.
I'm going for Tszyu decision, but in this case, I can say after covering Tszyu and watching Inoue in the past that this is going to be Tszyu's toughest fight, tougher than Jeff Horn, yes, and tougher than Dennis Hogan. Like he's gonna be there all night.
Yeah, well, I mean, this bloke's not a blown up welterweight, not washed up, not coming off a bad loss. Yeah, he fought Munguia 2 years ago. It was a
he gave
UD,
Munguia hell, by the way. Even though it was a clear victory, he was there. If you guys have a chance, I suggest you find the fight to go watch it if you haven't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So at least Tszyu's competition stepping way up, and the undercard's looking good. We'll give a little shout out. Wade Ryan's taken on Ben. What's his last name? Mahoney. That'll be a good fight. And Joel Camilleri's fighting Wes Kappa. So 2 solid super welterweight fights there. So and hopefully the winner of those 2 fights fight each other. So that'll be a good little couple of undercard fights on the card there. So props to No Limit because they put on a good show each and every time. You got to give them credit where credit's due. So, but I'm looking forward to it. 50-50. I don't know which way to go on this one. So
yeah, well,
that's my closing thoughts.
And my closing thought is something's got to give. We need a way to watch these fights here over in the States legally. I'm tired of having to hunt around to watch Tszyu fights. But, I think it's going to get better because we did get the Steve. Did we get the Steve Spark fight over here? They still picked that up? I forgot because it was supposed to be Zarafa. I forgot. But anyway, I'm
pretty sure they picked it. Yeah, they did because initially ESPN picked it up. Remember?
Yeah. So I'm getting more confident that maybe we'll get some type of network to pick, up this fight. Hopefully the Zone or ESPN, to invest in Tszyu again, especially since he's a mandatory contender, creeping up on a title shot, and his name has started to really get out there in the boxing circles over here in the States. We were just talking about several videos ago, about guys like Charlo and Danny Garcia saying they don't know who he is. Well, now his name is starting to make its rounds over here on the international scene. So take your time out, like the video, subscribe. I hope you like the new format. Some big news coming. We are working with the WBC channel powered by the Vive network. All that information, I've changed things up, is down below in the description box, as well as me and Big J's Twitter. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe, and as soon as we get some more news or anything of relevance comes out, we're going to be, of course, providing full coverage for this fight. Whenever the press conference is going to be, weigh in, fight week preview, post-fight, everything.
As usual, the press conference will be on the Monday. The weigh-in will be on the Tuesday before the fight. That's pretty much a guarantee. Yeah. They always do it that way. So,
all right.
There you go.
Take your time out, like the video, subscribe.